Welcome back to Takeout. Happy Friday, by the way. Sorry for forgetting that. Prospects for a summit between Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, always dim, appear nearly non-existent now. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told NBC News the agenda for a Putin-Zelenskyy summit is, quote, not ready at all, unquote. 1 week ago, Trump met Putin in Alaska. I know you remember that. Red carpet and hand claps at the ready. After the talks, Trump said he hoped to set a peace process in motion. The president convened Zelenskyy and European leaders at the White House Monday and later called Putin to relay the results. The White House then said preparations for a summit were underway. Today, the president sounded much less optimistic.
We're going to see if Putin and Zelenskyy will be working together. You know, that's like oil and vinegar a little bit. They don't get along too well.
Meanwhile, Russian air and drone strikes have continued, seemingly indifferent to peace initiatives, definitely hostile to talk of a ceasefire. Strikes have occurred every day the past week during the Alaska summit and the big White House meeting. There were nearly 100 air and shelling strikes inside Ukraine on the day of the Trump-Putin summit alone. That, according to the Ukraine Conflict Monitor. 2 weeks have passed since President Trump issued a deadline for Russia to end the war or face economic consequences. And yet, no new sanctions. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, joins me now. Bill, it's always great to have you. Thanks so much.
It's good to be here.
That's an elaborate setup, but it characterizes not only where we are, but where we have traveled, and it's not very far in the last week.
Well, you're right. We've got no progress on these meetings. However, last Monday, I think there was some progress on support for Ukraine.
Okay.
And we're talking about a security guarantee. And last Monday, the United States, President Trump said for the first time, we will participate. Turns out it's going to be air support. Air support's a lot. That could be useful. So that was progress. And I think, Major, that they made some progress in getting Trump back on track towards a ceasefire rather than this long-term settlement, which President Trump had gotten from President Putin last Friday. Get back on track, focus on the ceasefire.
And yet, this afternoon, the Russian president said he sees a light at the end of the tunnel of resumption of full relations with the United States. Putin thinks he's going to get all the other things he wants, which are more important to him than ending the war in Ukraine.
That's what the Russians say, but President Trump actually has addressed that. He says, fine, we'll talk about that after we get the war stopped. He's been very clear. He's been explicit about that. So the Russians can say all they want. The Russians say a lot of things. They also say that we won't accept the security guarantee to...
No European troops allowable in Ukraine.
It's irrelevant what they say about that. It is irrelevant.
Why is it irrelevant?
It's irrelevant because they don't get a say in how Ukraine defends itself. Ukraine has the ability as a sovereign nation to work a deal with the Europeans or the Americans to say, look, will you support us? Will you give us a security guarantee? The Russians are not involved in that conversation. They'd like to be. They'd like to say, no, you can't do it without us. But that's wrong. You can do it without them, and we should do it without them.
On this program, Tom Tillis, Republican senator from North Carolina, said the United States Senate should pass sanctions as a way to force a ceasefire. What do you think about that?
Senator's right. He's exactly right. That's the only way there's going to be a ceasefire is if we force Europeans, Americans, force Putin to come to the table. He's not going to come to the table if there's nothing pushing him. He doesn't want to end this war. He wants to keep bombarding Ukraine until they submit. They're not going to submit.
And yet the president, when asked over and over again, continues to express reluctance to flip that switch, even though he must know it's a pressure point.
It is a pressure point. He flipped one switch. He flipped the switch on India. He put sanctions on India because they're importing Russian oil. He threatened to do that on China. In fact, I think actually when he flipped that switch on India, I think that's what triggered Putin's panic. He said, I better get to talk to Trump.
Leading to the meeting in Alaska.
Leading to the meeting in Alaska.
So that proves the concept.
Does.
If you flip these economic switches, Russia will change its behavior, or at least its public rhetoric.
Trump has leverage, and that proves it. And the senator is right. He just needs to use that leverage.
There are 87 co-sponsors of a sanctions bill in the United States Senate. There are rarely instances where you get 87 senators to agree on anything, even a post office. That would be a big deal.
A big deal. President Trump has cover, has political cover to do that. He's got Republican support. He's got, he's got the American people's support. Ted Cruz says, Mr. President, Putin is not your friend. Putin is your enemy. He's used that, enemy. And Lindsey Graham says we should destroy the Russian economy.
Ambassador William Taylor. Bill, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Good to talk to you.